Growing up in a small town in Ohio, my sister Danielle was more than just a sibling to me. She was my protector, my teacher, and sometimes even my second mother. When our parents divorced, she held our broken family together with her bare hands. I trusted her with my life. I believed nothing could ever come between us. Then came her wedding day, and in just a few hours, everything I thought I knew about family loyalty shattered into a million pieces. I was accused of stealing, and suddenly everyone I loved turned their backs on me. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you are watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below. If you enjoy real-life stories that will make you question everything about trust and family, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Now let me take you back to that day when my whole world fell apart. To understand how deeply this betrayal cut me, you need to know where Danielle and I came from. We grew up in a modest 3-bedroom house on Maple Street in a quiet neighborhood outside of Columbus. Our father, Robert, worked at a manufacturing plant, while our mother, Patricia, stayed home to raise us. Life was simple, but good, at least until I turned 12 years old. That was the year our parents sat us down in the living room and told us they were getting a divorce. I remember staring at the worn carpet, unable to process what was happening. Danielle was 19, then already working as a nursing assistant while taking night classes. She grabbed my hand and squeezed it so tight I thought my fingers would break. But that pressure was exactly what I needed to keep from falling apart. After the divorce, Dad moved to Indiana and eventually remarried. We saw him on holidays and occasional weekends, but the distance grew with each passing year. Mom struggled financially and emotionally. Some nights I would hear her crying in her bedroom, trying to muffle the sound with her pillow. Danielle became the glue that held our fractured family together. She would come home from her double shifts exhausted beyond measure and still find the energy to help me with homework or make sure I ate a proper dinner. One memory stands out above all others. I was 14 and had failed my first major math test. I was terrified to tell Mom because she had enough stress already. Danielle found me sitting on the back porch, tears streaming down my face. She sat beside me and said something I have never forgotten. She told me that failure is not the end of anything. It is just information telling us where we need to work harder. The next 3 weeks, she tutored me every single night after her shifts. I passed the next test with a B+. That was the kind of sister Danielle was to me. So when she called me 8 months ago to tell me she was engaged to Marcus, a software engineer she had been dating for 2 years, I was overjoyed. Marcus seemed like a good man. He treated her with respect and made her laugh in ways I had not seen since we were kids. Their relationship gave me hope that maybe our family could finally have something purely happy to celebrate. Danielle asked me to be her man of honor, a role traditionally filled by a woman, but one she insisted I take. She said there was no one else she would rather have standing beside her on the most important day of her life. I was so honored, I almost cried right there on the phone. She also gave me a special responsibility. She wanted me to be in charge of collecting and safeguarding the gift envelopes from guests during the reception. It was a sign of absolute trust, she said, because that money would help them start their new life together. I took that responsibility more seriously than anything I had ever done. I bought a new navy blue suit, practiced my toast speech dozens of times, and even created a mental checklist of how I would handle the envelope collection. The wedding was scheduled for a Saturday in late September at a beautiful venue called Rosewood Gardens, about 45 minutes outside of Cleveland. 150 guests were invited, including relatives from both sides of the family and friends from various stages of their lives. The morning of the wedding arrived with perfect autumn weather. Golden leaves decorated the trees surrounding the venue, and the air carried that crisp freshness that only September can bring. I arrived early to help with setup and found Danielle in the bridal suite, looking more radiant than I had ever seen her. Her white gown was elegant but not extravagant, just like her personality. When she saw me, she rushed over and hugged me tight. She whispered in my ear that she was so glad I was there. She said she could not do this without me. Those words meant everything to me. The ceremony was beautiful. Marcus cried when he saw Danielle walking down the aisle. Our mother Patricia sat in the front row, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. Even our Aunt Linda, who rarely showed emotion, was visibly moved. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the entire room erupted in applause. I stood there, clapping harder than anyone, my heart swelling with pride for my sister. The reception began around 6:30 in the evening. The venue had set up a gorgeous display near the entrance where guests could place their gift envelopes in an ornate wooden box decorated with white roses and ribbons. My job was to stay near that box, greet guests, and periodically check that everything was secure. I took my position like a soldier guarding precious treasure. Throughout the evening, I watched envelope after envelope get deposited into that box. I made small talk with relatives I had not seen in years. Cousin Kevin came by and slapped me on the back, congratulating me on my toast speech earlier. Aunt Linda told me I had grown into such a responsible young man. Even Marcus came over at one point to thank me for everything I had done to make the day special. Around 9:15 in the evening, nature called, and I desperately needed to use the restroom. I had been holding it for nearly 2 hours, not wanting to leave my post. But the pressure became unbearable. I looked around and saw the box sitting securely on the table. The area was well lit and filled with guests mingling nearby. I figured 10 minutes would be fine. I walked quickly to the restroom, did what I needed to do, and returned as fast as possible. When I got back, the box was exactly where I had left it. Nothing seemed disturbed. I resumed my position and continued my duties until the reception wound down around 11 o'clock. At that point, I personally carried the box to where Danielle and Marcus were saying goodbye to the last few guests. I handed it to my sister with a smile, telling her to count it later and enjoy her wedding night. She hugged me and thanked me again. Our mother was standing right there, witnessing the handoff. Everything seemed perfect. I drove home that night, feeling like I had accomplished something meaningful. I had no idea that my life was about to implode. The next morning, I woke up around 8:30, feeling content and well-rested. I made myself some coffee and was scrolling through photos from the wedding that guests had posted online when my phone rang. It was Danielle. I answered cheerfully, expecting her to gush about how wonderful everything had been. Instead, her voice was ice cold. She asked me why I did it. I had no idea what she was talking about. I asked her what she meant, genuinely confused. She said the envelope box. She and Marcus had counted the contents that morning, and there were only 43 envelopes inside. She said she had personally seen at least 80 envelopes go into that box throughout the night. My stomach dropped. I told her that was impossible. I was with that box the entire evening except for maybe 10 minutes when I used the restroom. She cut me off sharply. She said that 10 minutes was clearly enough time for me to take what I wanted. She said they estimated that nearly $9,000 was missing. I could not believe what I was hearing. I told her I would never steal from her, that she knew me better than anyone. She laughed bitterly and said she thought she knew me. She said apparently she was wrong. Then she hung up. I immediately called back, but she did not answer. I tried 5 more times with the same result. In desperation, I called our mother. Surely she would believe me. Surely she would help me sort this out. Mom answered on the 3rd ring. Before I could even explain my side, she told me that Danielle had already called her. Her voice was heavy with disappointment. She said she never thought I would do something like this. She said she raised me better than that. I pleaded with her to listen. I told her I did not take anything. I told her someone else must have done it during those few minutes I was away. She sighed and said the only person with access to that box all night was me. She said she saw me hand it to Danielle herself, and now half the money was gone. The math was simple, she said. I felt like the ground was crumbling beneath my feet. I tried calling Aunt Linda next, hoping she might be more objective. She answered, but her tone was harsh from the first word. She called me a disgrace to the family. She said taking money from your own sister on her wedding day was the lowest thing a person could do. She told me not to contact her until I was ready to confess and make things right. Over the next few hours, my phone buzzed with messages from various family members. Cousin Kevin sent a long text calling me a thief and demanding I return the money immediately. A distant relative I barely knew sent a message saying she always knew something was off about me, Each notification felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. By that afternoon, I discovered I had been removed from the family group chat, the one we had used for years to share updates, coordinate holiday plans, and send birthday wishes. I was erased from it without warning, as if I had never existed. The days that followed were the loneliest of my life. I went to work at my accounting job, but I could barely focus on the numbers in front of me. My colleague noticed something was wrong and asked if I wanted to talk. I just shook my head and buried myself in spreadsheets. At night, I lay awake replaying the events of the wedding over and over. I kept asking myself if there was something I missed, some detail that could explain what happened. I remembered those 10 minutes I was away from the box, the restroom trip, the brief window when anyone could have approached that table. But who and why? Everyone there was either family or a close friend of Danielle and Marcus. The idea that someone among them could be a thief seemed impossible. Yet someone had clearly taken those envelopes, and everyone had decided that someone was me. 5 days after the wedding, I woke up with a new sense of determination. I could not spend the rest of my life as the family outcast for something I did not do. I needed to find the truth no matter what it took. My first thought was the venue. Rosewood Gardens was a professional establishment. Surely they had security cameras. I found the venue number online and called, my hands trembling slightly as I dialed. A woman answered and introduced herself as Sandra, the events manager. I explained who I was and the situation I was facing. I told her I was being accused of stealing from my own sister's wedding, and I desperately needed to see if their security footage could show what really happened. There was a long pause on the other end. Then Sandra said something that gave me a flicker of hope. She told me that yes, they did have security cameras covering the reception area. She said normally they do not share footage with outside parties, but given the circumstances, she was willing to make an exception. She could hear in my voice that I was telling the truth, she said. I thanked her so profusely that I probably sounded ridiculous. We arranged for me to come to the venue the following afternoon to review the footage together. That night, I barely slept. My mind raced with possibilities. What if the cameras did not capture the gift table clearly? What if the footage was corrupted or deleted? What if I was wrong about those 10 minutes being the window of opportunity? The next day, I drove to Rosewood Gardens with my heart pounding in my chest. Sandra met me in the lobby and led me to a small office where a computer was set up with the security system interface. She pulled up the recordings from the wedding date and navigated to the reception area camera. The footage was surprisingly clear. I could see the entrance, the gift table with its decorated box, and a good portion of the main reception space. Sandra fast-forwarded to around 8:00 in the evening, and we watched together. For over an hour, I saw myself standing dutifully near the table greeting guests and occasionally stepping aside to let people deposit their envelopes. Everything looked normal. Then we reached 9:15, the time I remembered leaving for the restroom. I watched myself walk away from the table on the screen. The box sat there unattended. Guests continued to mingle in the background. For about 2 minutes, nothing happened. Then a young woman approached the table. I leaned closer to the monitor, my breath catching in my throat. The woman looked around quickly, almost nervously. Then she reached into the box, pulled out a handful of envelopes, and stuffed them into her large designer handbag. She did this again, grabbing another bunch of envelopes. The whole thing took maybe 90 seconds. Then she walked away, calmly disappearing into the crowd. Sandra looked at me with wide eyes. She asked if I knew who that was. I stared at the frozen image on the screen. The woman's face was clearly visible. I recognized her from the wedding. She had been at a table near the back with some of Marcus' relatives. Her name was Tiffany. She was Marcus' younger cousin. My hands were shaking as I asked Sandra if she could copy this footage onto a USB drive for me. She nodded and got to work immediately. While she was doing that, I sat there processing what I had just witnessed. The person who stole my sister's wedding money was not me. It was someone from her new husband's family. And now I had proof. But alongside the relief, I felt a deep sadness. I had spent nearly a week being called a thief, a disgrace, and worse, by the people I loved most. My own mother had refused to believe me. My sister had cut me out of her life without even giving me a chance to defend myself. They had all been so quick to assume the worst about me. Sandra handed me the USB drive and placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. She told me she was sorry this happened to me. She said family should never treat each other this way, and she hoped this evidence would help me set things right. I thanked her again and drove home with the USB drive, feeling like a precious artifact in my pocket. Now I needed to figure out how to present this evidence. I could have sent it via email or text, but that felt too impersonal. After everything I had been through, I wanted to look my family in the eyes when the truth came out. Then I remembered the monthly family dinner. It was a tradition our mother had started after the divorce to keep everyone connected. Every fourth Sunday, whoever was available would gather at her house for a potluck meal. The next one was coming up in 3 days. I had not been invited, of course, but I decided I was going anyway. I called my best friend Derek that evening to tell him everything. He listened without interrupting, then let out a low whistle when I finished. He said he always knew I was innocent, but this was even more dramatic than he expected. He advised me to stay calm when I confronted my family. He said getting angry would only give them a reason to dismiss me. I knew he was right. I spent the next few days preparing mentally for what was coming. I rehearsed what I would say. I made sure my laptop was charged and the video file played correctly. I even practiced keeping my voice steady when emotions threatened to take over. On Saturday night, I sent a single text message to Danielle. I told her I would be at the family dinner tomorrow and asked if she would be there. She did not respond, but I saw the read receipt. She had seen my message. Sunday afternoon arrived with gray skies and a light drizzle, as if the weather itself sensed the tension about to unfold. I pulled into my mother's driveway and sat in my car for a few minutes, gathering my courage. Through the front window, I could see figures moving around inside. The family was already assembled. I grabbed my laptop bag and walked to the front door. I did not knock. I just opened it and stepped inside. The conversation in the living room stopped abruptly. Every head turned toward me. I saw my mother, Patricia, standing near the kitchen doorway, her face a mixture of surprise and discomfort. Danielle sat on the couch next to Marcus, her expression hardening the moment our eyes met. Aunt Linda was in the armchair by the window, and Cousin Kevin leaned against the wall with his arms crossed. Danielle stood up first. Her voice was sharp when she asked what I was doing there. She said she thought she made it clear that I was not welcome until I admitted what I did and paid back the money. I kept my voice steady, just like Derek advised. I told her I came to show everyone the truth. I said I did not steal anything, and I had proof. Mom stepped forward, her tone weary. She asked what kind of proof I could possibly have. She said she saw me with that box all night. She saw me hand it to Danielle at the end. I asked if I could use the television for a few minutes. Before anyone could object, I was already walking toward the TV stand, pulling my laptop from my bag. Marcus started to say something, but Danielle held up her hand to stop him. Maybe she was curious. Maybe she wanted to see me fail. Either way, she did not stop me. I connected my laptop to the TV and pulled up the video file. I told everyone that this footage came from the security cameras at Rosewood Gardens. I said it showed what really happened during the reception. I pressed play. The room watched in silence as the video showed the gift table, the decorated box, and eventually me walking away toward the restroom. Then the crucial moment arrived. Tiffany appeared on screen, looking around furtively before reaching into the box and taking the envelopes. I heard a sharp intake of breath from somewhere behind me. I turned to see Marcus' face had gone completely pale. He was staring at the screen with his mouth slightly open. Danielle's hands flew to her face. She whispered that it could not be possible. The video showed Tiffany taking a second handful of envelopes before walking away. I paused the footage on a clear shot of her face. I spoke directly to Marcus. I said that was Tiffany, his cousin. I asked if he recognized her. Marcus nodded slowly, seemingly unable to form words. Then he pulled out his phone and started dialing. Danielle asked who he was calling. He said he was calling Tiffany. He said he needed to hear her explain this. He put the phone on speaker. It rang 4 times before Tiffany answered with a casual greeting, clearly not expecting what was coming. Marcus' voice was strained when he asked her if she took anything from his wedding. There was a pause. Tiffany asked what he meant. Her voice suddenly nervous. Marcus told her they had video footage from the venue showing her taking envelopes from the gift box. He told her not to lie to him. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. Then Tiffany's voice cracked. She started crying and saying she was sorry. She said she was in trouble. She owed money to some people, bad people, and she was desperate. She said she was going to pay it back. She never meant for anyone else to take the blame. The room erupted. Aunt Linda gasped. Cousin Kevin swore under his breath. Mom sank into a chair, her hand over her heart. Danielle turned to me with tears streaming down her face. She kept saying she was sorry over and over. She said she should have believed me. She said she should have at least listened to my side before assuming the worst. She asked how she could have done that to her own brother. Mom got up from her chair and crossed the room to where I stood. She wrapped her arms around me, something she had not done in years. She said she failed me. She said a mother should always believe in her child, and she let me down when I needed her most. I hugged her back, feeling the tension of the past week slowly begin to release from my shoulders. I told her it was okay. I said what mattered was that the truth was out now. Marcus ended the call with Tiffany after telling her she would need to return every cent and that there would be serious consequences. He then approached me and extended his hand. He apologized sincerely. He said he never should have let his wife believe I was capable of such a thing without proper evidence. He said he would make sure Tiffany faced accountability for what she did. I shook his hand and told him I appreciated that. The weeks that followed brought slow but meaningful healing. Danielle and I started talking regularly again, sometimes on the phone, sometimes meeting for coffee. She told me she had been carrying guilt every single day since she accused me. She said she could not understand why she had been so quick to believe the worst. We both cried during some of those conversations, but they brought us closer than we had been in years. Marcus handled the situation with his cousin firmly. Tiffany was confronted by her immediate family and eventually admitted she had a serious gambling addiction that had spiraled out of control. She paid back every dollar she had taken, plus extra to cover the emotional damage she had caused. She also agreed to enter a treatment program. I never saw her again, but I heard through Marcus that she was making progress. My mother made a conscious effort to repair our relationship. She admitted that she had always leaned toward believing Danielle in disputes because Danielle was older and had taken on so much responsibility after the divorce. She realized that her bias had blinded her to the possibility that I was innocent. We had long conversations about our family dynamics and how we could do better going forward. Even Cousin Kevin apologized, though it was awkward and brief. He texted me saying he felt like a jerk for calling me a thief, and he hoped I could forgive him. I told him I did. Looking back on this experience, I learned some hard truths about family and trust. I learned that the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally can still let you down in devastating ways. I learned that accusations are easy to make, but incredibly difficult to undo. And I learned that when you are wrongly accused, the most powerful thing you can do is stay calm and search for the truth. Anger would have been easy. I could have screamed and fought and burned bridges with everyone who doubted me, but that would have only made things worse. Instead, I channeled my energy into finding evidence, and that evidence spoke louder than any argument I could have made. I also learned something about forgiveness. Holding on to resentment would have poisoned me from the inside. My family made mistakes, serious ones, but they were also willing to acknowledge those mistakes and try to make amends. Not everyone gets that chance. I chose to accept their apologies and move forward because holding on to anger would have only hurt me in the end. Now, when I sit at those monthly family dinners, I look around at the faces of my mother, my sister, and the various relatives who once turned their backs on me. I do not feel bitterness. I feel gratitude that we found our way back to each other. I feel hope that we can continue to grow and learn from this experience. Family is not perfect. People make assumptions. They jump to conclusions. They let fear and disappointment cloud their judgment. But if there is love underneath all of that, there is always a chance for redemption. If you have ever been wrongly accused by someone you love, I hope my story gives you some comfort. The truth has a way of coming out eventually. Your job is to stay strong, gather your evidence, and never stop believing in your own innocence. Have you ever experienced a situation where your family did not believe you? How did you handle it? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this video resonated with you, please give it a like and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Subscribe to this channel for more real-life stories about family trust and the complicated journey of human relationships. Thank you so much for watching today. I wish you strength, patience, and the courage to always stand up for your truth.